This is Bass Talk Live. Your host, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pangrack. BTL is brought to you by Lowrance, Lose, Strike King Lures, Bass Cat Boats, Ducket Fishing, Spro, AFCO, Big Bite Baits, Sunline, and TH Marine. BTL coming at you. Good Tuesday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Matthew, how you doing today?
Good. I was impressed with our Andy Montgomery interview yesterday. The guy brought it. I didn't realize he was on for almost an hour. He went through history, he went through techniques, he went through current events, covered everything. He's really a smart dude. Man.
Really good.
We do have breaking news.
Well, it's not breaking. It broke last night.
Well, it's this morning, so it's less than
broke last night. Continue.
Well, I was going to let you break the news, Mark.
No, you said we have breaking news.
I teed it up for you.
I think
MLF postponed Stage 4 of the Bass Pro Tour in an abundance of caution. And so Raleigh, North Carolina is not going to happen at this time, as I think the deeper we got into this pandemic, the more we realized this probably wasn't going to happen.
It's the right move.
Not, in my opinion, not so much that it would be dangerous to have these guys fish. I understand they are built to not have a lot of close human contact during the events. I mean, you've got the cameraman in some boats, 10 of the boats, and an official, and you could keep it, and you can put in at different ramps and not have a weigh-in. But I think more so around, you've got these 80 guys that are spread all around the country, especially in the states of New Jersey and California, Washington, all over the place. And taking these guys, especially when you have, the shelter-in-place stuff in some of these states, and then bringing them across the country to fish and stay in hotels and travel and then go home to their families afterwards, it's just smart to pack it in for this event.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, the format, perfect kind of format for this situation, but all the points that you bring up, Matt, I agree 100%. This was definitely the right thing to do.
Yeah, you've got a lot of guys in hot zones where this coronavirus is. So no Elite Series, no.
Isn't there an open schedule?
Toyota Series, no open.
There is one scheduled for April, wasn't there?
Yeah, that was the Louisville one.
I thought there was another one.
No, there's one later on Cherokee, I believe.
Okay.
So who knows?
Yeah.
Do you want to see what MLF recommends from the CDC? They put it in their press release.
I saw that.
Clean your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. I cleaned it with a disinfectant before I came in the studio today. Avoid close contact with sick persons. Practice social distancing among your community. Stay home if you're sick. Cover the nose and mouth when sneezing or coughing, as Mark Jeffries just demonstrated.
Oh, I didn't sneeze. I just coughed.
You coughed.
Anyway, yeah.
Routinely clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces and objects.
Every day here in the studio.
I disinfected the computer today before I came in. Consult a healthcare provider as needed, and then visit the cdc.gov. So that's in the... I never thought I'd get a fishing press release that included that information, but that is the time that we live in right now, Mark.
A lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and it was a tough decision from the perspective of the fishing aspect. But when you look at everything else that was involved in this decision, much, much more factors weighed in than just fishing.
Are you surprised it took him this long?
No, because I think they were waiting and trying to see if there were alternatives maybe that they could, I don't know, somehow, some way
get it in. If they could do this safely without without a public backlash of why is everything else canceled, the Olympics are postponed, everything, and you guys are still fishing and sending guys across the country. Yeah. If they could somehow have navigated that channel of perception and public safety and got through it to where everyone went, okay, there's a viable option and reason where they're not putting anybody at risk and they're on the water and they're still able to compete and there's still the live element to it, they kind of would have had the stage all to themselves.
Which would have been good.
Yeah. But I think had they pushed on and done this, I think they would have faced a backlash, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Of saying, hey, you're trying to capitalize on the fact that nothing else is going on by pushing through, putting people in that community possibly in jeopardy because we don't exactly know how this virus, how big it's going to get, and putting your anglers in jeopardy just so you can get a leg up and be the only show in town. I don't think that would have been a great look.
Yeah, I agree. So it is postponed now, and we talked about this earlier. Scheduling is going to be a nightmare.
Oh, nightmare, because you also have to remember there's tons of TV scheduling and everything and the live streaming, and now you're going to have Elite Series and Toyota Series and Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuits and Bassmaster Opens and BFLs and team tournaments, and what I think is going to end up happening, depending on when all this gets back. I think if we start having tournaments again, in May or June, you might be able to jam some in. You might have some more summertime tournaments. Typically, there's that break there around ICAST.
Yeah.
The July, August, where the Elite Series typically goes up north, but that middle of June through August is kind of
Does ICAST happen?
Who knows? But let's just hypothetically say this all gets done. What you're going to have is you're going to really have X number of weekends where you're not going to have tournament staff that's going to be able to be at all these places at once to make up on all these tournaments.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a lot of guys that are going to have to make decisions as to what they're going to do. You know, a lot of tournaments. I would not be surprised if we saw maybe some truncated schedules to where, it's 2 or 3 tournaments in that series instead of 5, or 6 or 7 tournaments in that series instead of 8 or 9, just to be able to logistically get it all in by the end of the year.
All right, let me ask you this question. On the bass side, the next Elite Series scheduled is at Santee Cooper. It doesn't say postponed on the schedule. What is that?
I'll take credit for that. I thought my volume was muted. I was looking at the instant feedback.
I was like, what is that? Okay, at least on the Bassmaster website, that tournament does not say postpone or reschedule. I can't see that happening. The Nation is canceled. So then the next Elite Series is on the Sabine River.
Which is?
May 29th, June 1st.
Right, and that's right on top. There's also, I believe, a Bass Nation regional going on then at Toledo Bend, which I haven't
rescheduled.
I haven't heard any word that they rescheduled that yet.
Oh, I don't know.
It doesn't say rescheduled, does it?
No, I'm just looking at the schedule that's on their website. The point I'm trying to make is they've had 2 days of fishing, and their first tournament may not be until June. What do you do for the point standings, and what do you do for the Bassmaster Classic qualification? And do you try to get those tournaments in during September, October, November, December?
If that's a possibility, I think you have to if everything is calmed down, but then you're dealing with the second wave of this thing. I've done a lot of reading. Now, who knows? I'd say there's tons of stuff on that, but typically it'll ramp down and then there'll be another round of it once the temperatures cool off again. So who knows, Mark? We don't know. We have no idea what's going to happen. That's the crazy part about it. That's what I think what causes so much anxiety.
The unknown.
Is the level of uncertainty and unknown.
Yeah.
And we're in the boat right along with it, with everyone else. But I guess all we can do is take the precautions and then provide a little bit of fishing talk for an hour a day.
You do a lot of thinking when these things are taking place. And I've done a lot of thinking about how this could play out, at least on the bass side. And we're going to have Stetson Blaylock on here in about 5 minutes. So I want to get his take on, what should we do? Should it be status quo? If their first true tournament, think about it. They're not going to have a full tournament besides the Bassmaster Classic.
Which isn't a full tournament.
Until possibly the month of June.
Yeah.
So what do you do? All right. And here's kind of a possibility. And folks, the hate mail, the name calling, all right, the concept and the statements of Jeffries is whacked out of his mind. just please listen. All right, I know the split day on the Classic idea was kind of out there and stuff, but I was just trying to be creative. That's all I was trying to do. Could this be an opportunity, Matthew, on a small scale, and I'll get into more detail as this thing gets closer and closer on my idea, but is there a possibility that we may have a Classic not until the end of 2021? In other words, we could potentially have what you could classify a major for like the top 30 guys or top 38 guys or 40, whatever the number is, and have that maybe in October.
You're making this way too complicated.
No, hang on. You keep the field exactly the same, and you may, if you get the opens in, I mean, who knows if there's going to be an open season. You stick those open guys in there that qualify. You build the field up a little bit. Everybody gets kind of a redshirt year where everybody's back. And then you have a schedule put together in 2021 where everybody fishes 8 events or whatever the number is. Then you finally have a Classic in the fall.
No, I think if we get this under control where some sort of normalcy comes back, these guys have signed up for their tournaments against a certain group of guys to qualify for a Classic that's in the spring of 2021. We've seen years in the past when they had 8 tournament schedules and they did 4 back-to-back weekends, and you backload it with the same guys, and they fish through November, and they have their top 40 that qualify for the Classic in 2021, and then you go on as life as normal.
I don't disagree with that at all.
You flip it from a spawning, pre-spawn, post-spawn season to a summer, fall, early winter season. Everything gets postponed 6 months. We get this thing handled, under control, and you move on with life as normal, and everyone goes, hey, remember that year that we all fish in this fall or winter? If it goes exceedingly well and we see crazy good tournaments in these rescheduled southern fisheries that were supposed to be, Chickamauga and Eufaula and all this stuff that was supposed to be early in the year, and it's a great fall bite. Maybe you see some expansion in the schedule going forward to it, but I don't think you have to rewrite the rule and have laps and overlaps and stuff. Just get it all done in the fall, and the Elite Series and the Pro Circuit takes precedence over the other stuff. If you have to truncate one of the opens or something. But I mean, you got guys that are paying $5,000 to $6,000 for the tournament for what they signed up with to do it. Get those guys in and don't wrap it around. Don't add other anglers to it.
There is no wraparound.
I think you just shift it. You just shift everything.
No, what I see, and a lot of people on the instant feedback are saying the same thing. This is an opportunity for bass to really bring out something positive, to where the guys still have an opportunity to win money and make a decent living for the remainder of the season. But at the same time, now you set things up for 2021 where you have a true defined schedule and Classic, of which there's a lot of people out there that have been asking for a non-pre-spawn Classic.
So there's no Classic in the spring of 2021?
No.
But let me see if I get this right, because I don't understand what you're saying. There's no Classic in the spring of 2021.
No, it goes to the fall of 2021.
But, so how do you qualify for that?
You start, the very first event would take place in January of 2021.
So what about the rest of this year?
You wrap up this year with a major.
For just the Elite Series anglers.
Just the Elite Series anglers. You wrap up the season with a major event, of which first place is like $200,000 or $150,000. So
you add an event.
You add an event.
At the end of the year, but you don't make up the ones that they've missed.
That is correct.
So you end up, let's hypothetically say they get one more tournament plus the Northern Swing in.
Yes.
So then you would take the 2.5-day tournament in Florida and the remaining 4 tournaments of the season. You would give the entry fees back to those guys for the 3 or 4 tournaments that they missed in the middle.
Yeah. Or they could roll it over to their entries for 2021. Either one.
No one gets cut this year.
Nobody gets cut.
And then, since you don't have a Classic, you have a full season next year with the open guys, depending on, assuming they get in or there's some way to qualify these guys through the Eastern and the Centrals.
Right.
and then the Classic is in the fall of 2021.
Yep.
And then you see how it went there, or you have like an 05-06 wraparound where then you'd have one in the fall and you'd have one in the spring, and it'd basically be double qualifiers.
Correct. If you wanted to move it back to the pre-spawn.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that.
All right.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got some legs to it.
Yeah. Because then nobody misses out on not getting a true opportunity to qualify for the Bassmaster Classic. Makes sense? But at the same time, you still incent performance from 2021 by creating this cool major at the end of the year where first place is 150,000, 200,000, whatever you can do with it. Makes sense? Mm-hmm. There's no penalization due to what this situation has created from a Bassmaster Classic standpoint. And honestly, I think if you put truth serum in people, especially the anglers, that they would like to see a non-pre-spawn Classic.
I agree. Plus, it also doesn't seem fair. None of this seems fair, Mark, but it doesn't. It's just as far as what's happening.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem fair then in the fishing world to have guys, if you do end up truncating the season and not making up the southern fisheries in the fall, to have guys qualify on 2 days in Florida and then 4 northern tournaments.
Well, they might be able to get the Sabine in.
Right.
Might.
But still, I understand what you're saying if they don't. Or they just make it all up and we go on as life as normal.
So, I don't know. We'll see. Just a thought, man. Anyway, tomorrow, here, I want to let everybody know, we will either have a best of show or I'm working on something that it might be a pre-recorded interview because there was a guy that I was trying to get on and he will not be able to make a morning show.
Okay.
So he said, hey, can we pre-record it and play it either on the show, kind of like what I did with, who was it that I did that with?
John Cruz.
With John Cruz. So I'm going to work on that this afternoon. So we will either have that interview or we will have a best of. Then on Thursday, we're going to have Rick Pierce on, the president of Bass Cat Boats, get his take on some of the stuff that's taking place from an industry standpoint right now with the situation that everybody in the world is dealing with. And then also, Rick is a great, great storyteller, and I'm sure he will go into the vault of many, many experiences and memories that Rick Pierce has in this game of fishing and professional fishing. Then on Friday, David Fritz, looking forward to that. I'm going to be a busy dude this afternoon, Matthew, because now with the cancellation of or postponement of the Major League Fishing event, there are several guys that I want to get on the show since we're doing either 4 or 5 shows a week.
The dude we have on today, I did not realize what is happening in the Stetson Blaylock world right now.
Huh.
Like I knew, what was the for?
Keep going.
I knew he had been catching them.
Yeah.
Have you like compiled any of his recent stuff?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Last 10 Bassmaster tournaments. How much you think he's made?
Last 10?
Mm-hmm. Going back to,
I don't have it.
Going back to the Elite Series on Lake Hartwell.
$50,000.
Last 10 Elite Series tournaments.
Oh, last 10 Elite Series tournaments.
And including this past Classic.
What did he finish in the Classic? Third?
Third. So you're talking
$125,000.
No.
How much?
Keep going.
$250,000. I'll double it.
Keep going.
Really? $300,000.
Keep going.
$400,000?
$360,000.
Wow.
He has seven top 10 finishes, 4 top 3 finishes, a win on Winyah Bay, and a 3rd place in the Classic. His previous 19 Elite Series tournaments from when he joined basically his rookie season in 2017, he had 1 top 10 in Elite Series competition through that.
Wow. That's
and then
good.
You know, from 11 through 16 when he was on the FLW Tour as a boater, he obviously ripped it up as a Coangler, but from 11 through 16 he had top 30s in the Angler of the Year all that time, and he had 10 top 10s on the tour and then a couple also in the Open. So remember, he came over, and I was just thinking about all this, like, oh, Stetson Blaylock. So he got that year or 2 years actually, of, whatever, the Van Dams and Martins and all that stuff fishing against him.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, dude, Stetson Blaylock's coming over. And quite frankly, he sucked for Stetson Blaylock standards.
Yeah.
And then it was like, he had what he had. He had an 8th place on Lanier in 2019. And then he had a 60th. And then listen to his last tournament finishes, his last 10. 2nd, 1st, 16th, 50th, 23rd, 8th, 2nd, 9th, 3rd. I mean, big chunks of money. 40 grand, 55 grand, 100 grand, 26 grand. I didn't realize that.
That's really
I
good,
knew that
man.
he was always like in the mix and stuff, but the dude's on a heater.
He had almost $1 million in earnings over on the FLW side. I think it was like 900 and something thousand or something.
Yeah.
Close to it.
But I mean,
So, yeah.
you put those numbers up against anybody, he's already up to $500,000 almost on the bass side.
Yeah, I talked to Dave about this when we were at the Classic.
Dave Rush.
There were 2 guys that thoroughly impressed me during the press conference on the final
we talked
day.
about this on the show.
There was Stetson and there was John Cruz.
Yeah, well, John Cruz is...
I mean, he's the guy with the most experience.
He's a brand new penny. He's polished. He's shiny. Always has been.
But I was really, really impressed with Stetson and the way that he handled himself in front of the camera, and does a great job, man. So glad to have him on. All right, man. Anything else? Oh, real quick. Here, talk about this real quick. Dave Fuhrer from Nebraska, all right, sent us some jigs.
I was looking at those
and
yesterday.
you really like these, don't you?
I do. I like the hook on them. I mean, there's a lot of guys who make jigs, but it's a quality jig.
So big shout out to Dave, and big thank you. Hopefully here shortly.
We each get an Ozark craw and a black and blue.
Yeah. It looks really good though.
Yeah,
great hook.
Heck yeah,
super good hook in there. So big thank you to Dave for sending those to us, and I still got to get the PO box set up. I'm slipping on that, dude. Really bad.
I don't know if you want to be walking around the post office in this day and time right now.
Yeah. Dude, I haven't went out at all. I had to go to school yesterday to pick up a bunch of camera equipment that I had left there. So that's been about it. I haven't really done anything else. All right. We're going to take a break. Come back with Stetson here on a Tuesday. Everybody stay tuned.
The ultimate fishing system starts with Lowrance HDS Live. Upgrade to HDS Live with a Ghost trolling motor, live sight transducer, or Structure Scan 3D, and get up to $500 cash back.
Yeah, you care about gear ratios, inches per turn, and ball bearings, but most importantly, you want reliability and dependability in the equipment you use. Luz doesn't cut corners when it comes to the gear they build. The new Speed Spool LFS is the best $99 reel in the market. Go see for yourself.
We've paired one of the most iconic hulls in the history of bass boats with a proven lineup of trusted accessories. We're bringing you best-in-class value and performance, leaving others in your wake. Turnkey value, turnkey performance. The Pantera 2 is an overachiever in the 19-foot category. Once you hit the throttle, you'll feel the rush, and there's no looking back.
Kevin, what are you doing here?
Oh, I'm just filling in for Billy.
I need 660 shad crankbaits in the Series 5 model.
We're out.
You're not out. You got all kinds of them right there.
We're out.
Kevin, I need 6.
Have a lollipop.
I do not want a lollipop.
Have a lollipop.
Do you have it the sexy shad color?
At Duckett Fishing, we have assembled the top pros in the country to help us design rods to give you a competitive advantage.
Castability, strength, durability,
action, sensitivity, weight and balance, and consistency. Combine that with the best warranty in the industry, and you have rods that are pro-driven.
Duck It Fishing, pro-driven.
I want to share with you a new product we got coming out from Sunline. This is the FC leader size spools that we have now. We've gotten a lot of requests for this. A lot of you guys use fluorocarbon for leaders only, myself included. And one of the problems you have is when you have a 200-yard spool, that might last you 2, 3, 4 years. You might even lose it before you even get done with the spool. So we've gone to a little smaller spool. These are 50-yard spool sizes. You know, that way you're not holding your line on forever. You can keep your line fresh, use it when you can, stores real easily in the boat. We got all of our popular line sizes that you're used to with our Sniper from 5 to 14 pound. If you guys are looking for a line that you're only tying for a leader, go check out Sunline FC Leader 100% fluorocarbon and give it a try.
All right, we are back on a Tuesday. It is time
I got my math wrong, by the way.
to go to our special guest.
Counted
What
one
happened?
of them twice. He's only won 292,000 in the
excuse
last
me.
10 tournaments, not 360,000. I accidentally counted a couple cash bonuses in there instead. 292,000 in the last 10. That's still
Yeah, but he still earned the money even though it was a cash bonus.
no, but I counted it twice.
Oh,
Twice.
double dipped, huh?
Yeah.
No, you're right, man. It's still very impressive what the guy has done over the last 10 tournaments. So,
$292,000 in the last
lot.
10 tournaments.
yeah, banker probably likes
It's like
him a lot.
making a living fishing.
What a concept.
Making a living fishing. Like actually fishing. That's like Steve Kennedy stats right there.
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, let's bring him in. Stetson, you there, man?
I'm here. I got you. Good
All
morning.
right.
How are y'all?
Doing well, man. Thanks for taking a little bit of time away from your family. I know it's very challenging for everybody out there, but greatly appreciate you being a part of the show, man.
I'm glad to be here. Yeah, it's crazy times we're living in for sure. It's it can be challenging for everybody to change the way they live, but for me and for a lot of people I know, it's been kind of nice being able to take that time and spend it with your family and, not just be with your family, but actually getting to spend quality time with them. It's been pretty interesting.
Yeah, I want to go back a little bit and kind of dive into your history. Some of the people may not be familiar with all the success that you had over on the FLW side and then making the move over to the Elite Series. I've listened to a couple of interviews that you've done, and I've also listened to the Q&A that you did on Facebook, which I thought was very, very cool that you did. You started out as a co-angler. You started very young. But what was it like having so much success as a co-angler, and then did that really drive you into the position that you ended up establishing yourself as one of the top guys over on the FLW side?
I think it did. For me, I try not to look at, success is measured in a lot of different ways from a lot of different people. And for me, being successful, the biggest key to me was just making a living, being able to stay out there and make a living and do my job. And even as a co-angler, that's how I made a living. I mean, I was 16, 17, 18, 19 years old and making good money out of the back of the boat. And that was, for me, it was all about being able to support myself and just not have to get another job. And I was very fortunate to have some success in the back of the boat. And it did carry over to the pro side, no doubt about it, just because I got to fish with some of the best fishermen in the sport at that time. And still to this day, some of those guys are the top names, and just be able to learn from them. And, a lot of the stuff that I learned, surprisingly enough, it wasn't really what to do, but a lot of it was the mistakes not to make. How can I better myself on the water by not doing things that I saw those guys doing? And it was just enough to kind of take that next step and run with it and be successful.
One of the crazy things was you won the Coangler division in 2008 on the FLW Tour, and I was doing a little history, and I just like to look back because it's always like, holy cow. So Stetson wins. Paul Mueller finishes that year in third on the FLW Tour Angler of the Year, and Chad Pipkins finishes that year in seventh. So there on the classic stage this past, you had 3 guys from the 2008 Coangler side of the FLW Tour that were on the classic stage in 2020. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. I never thought about that. I haven't, I haven't ever looked back. Probably need to do that more often, look back on some of that stuff. That's very interesting. And that just goes to show you a testament to what you can learn fishing with other people. And people look at it differently. I looked at fishing as a co-angler, not as how competitive can I be, but what can I learn and what can I take from each day on the water and use it in the future? And that's what I did. And Paul and Pipkins and all those guys, a lot of us were doing that same thing. And it's really neat to be where we are today.
You were part of that group with like Lucas in it and Spencer Shuffield. I remember when I was covering it. I mean, there was like a group of co-anglers, and it seemed like you guys really had it dialed in. And then you all took that next step and all have really made your mark over the past decade in the front of the boat.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because, Justin Lucas and I went back. I mean, he introduced himself to me when we were 16 at the time it was the EverStart Championship at I think it was at Wheeler Lake in Alabama, and we were both 16 years old. He had been dominating out west in the back. I'd been dominating over here in the back, and we just kind of started kind of keeping up with each other. He lived out there at the time, and I'm telling you, there was a stretch there, if you go back and look, I think it was in 2008. I'm pretty sure he won like 2 in a row out west, like FLW Series events, and I won 2 of the Eastern FLW Series. So like 4 or 5 tournaments in a row, Justin or I won those events back to back to back to back to back. And it was pretty spectacular just to be close with a guy like that. And we were just killing it, east and west. And, you can kind of look back on those times and see how fun that was and how unique it was to do those kind of things, and then see where we are today and how our careers have gone and just been successful. And Spencer Shuffield's another one. He took a couple of years off, but now you see he's back and he's doing really well on the FLW Pro circuit, and it's pretty cool to see how it's all turned around.
One more co-angler question, and we'll get to like the real stuff here but how crazy good were those team deals back then with all you guys? I mean, it's 10 years past that stuff, but I mean, did that really allow you guys to be able to go out there and fish and all that stuff with all the different team deals that FLW offered to the guys in the back of the boat?
Yeah, some of them were unique. I think there was guys that had better ones than I did. I actually got mine through the sponsor that I had at the time. It wasn't necessarily through FLW, but then when I won the Co-Angler of the Year in 2008, then they offered to pay my way in the front of the boat, and it was through FLW then, and it was the only reason that I was able to do it. Yes, I had been very successful, but it was really expensive, and I was scared to death to make that move. But being able to do that and have some help, it really set the tone for me to move to the front of the boat and be able to make a living doing it.
Very cool. All right, let's talk a little bit about this year. Obviously, the adversity that everybody's going through right now, having only fished a total, if you fish the Classic, of 5 days the entire year, possibly, maybe. It is mind-boggling that we are entering the month of April and we've had so little fishing. What I want to talk about, obviously, your first Classic, but Matt and myself and Dave Rush talked about the performance of the Super 6 guys was very, very impressive. And I was thoroughly impressed, along with so many other people, about how you conducted yourself both on the water and off the water with the camera. Dude, you just seem like you're dialed in all aspects of this game. Why is that? And where do you think you really have honed in your media savviness in this game to get to the point that you're at today?
Well, excuse me. I think the number one thing, and this can be, take it how you want to. I think the biggest key is when you believe in what you're saying and when you know it to be the truth, it comes naturally. And for me, I've always been an angler that I try to portray and try to live the same life and try to, when I'm talking about something or it doesn't matter if it's fishing or just life in general, you have to be genuine and you have to, make sure your audience knows that you're genuine. And for me, I think that part of it is just started to come naturally over the last few years of just, talk about what you're using, make sure that you're giving the people what they're there for. And I think that's the biggest key is make sure that people are getting what they're there for. And just like doing the Q&A and answering those questions, and people have questions and they want to know things, and that's the biggest thing you can do is just make sure you give them what they're there for. But as far as the fishing goes and just the confidence and making the right decisions, I think for me it started when I was 16, 17 years old, fishing in the back of the boat, getting to fish with those guys. And back then, co-anglers fished all 4 days. So I got camera time quite a bit in the back of the boat and was able to see how those guys handled themselves on camera and was able to take tidbits of that from a very young age. And now this is my 11th year doing this as a pro. Yeah. And I just feel like you get to a point in your career where you're either going to figure it out or you're not. And I'm not saying catching bass. I'm just saying the whole game, the whole big picture of things is, the sponsor side, the handling yourself and in pressure situations, that's a big thing is, being able to do it when there's nobody around, nobody watching, no cameras on you. But when it's the final day, can you make it happen on those final days? And I think it's, the last 6 or 8 years has really helped me out on that front as well.
All right. I want to get into a little bit of tactics from the Classic, and specifically I believe it was a Norman crankbait. Is that correct?
Yes, a Norman Speed In. And
it's not out yet, correct?
It's not out yet, but they're working hard to get it out as fast as they can.
How much influence did you have on that bait? And can you elaborate on the noise of the bait? Because it seems like it is a very unique noise that's in a crankbait.
To answer the first part of that question, I was sent those baits back in the wintertime and they were just prototypes. I really didn't have a whole lot of say in that bait at all. It was one that they didn't really change a lot from. The body of that bait is just like a deep little in. They just took a square bill, widened it out, and tried to make, to me, it was just more of a square bill type crankbait. But what they ended up doing and what made it so good is it had a really tight action to it, but still had a real wide lip. So it came through the grass really, really good for me. And I think the biggest thing with the sound of that bait is if you take a deep little in and you hold it up and you shake it, it has a knock, but it's subtle. Yeah. It still has it's got a certain tone to it, but it's subtle. And I think having that tight action with that subtle knock to it was just something different that those fish at Guntersville hadn't seen much of.
I've seen a lot of people with similar crankbaits when they switch out the hooks, because you did switch out the hooks on that bait. They go with red hooks. What are your thoughts about colored hooks? Do they make a difference?
It's not something I do a lot. I will tell you that in certain situations, if you're throwing a jerk bait, if you're trying to imitate shad that are dying off or injured shad, I don't think it hurts to put one on the front. And I think the reason you would put it on the front, and the reason that I've done it in the past, is because you're trying to get those fish to eat that bait all the way. And I think having a red hook on there just gives them something else to key in on. And I don't think it will get you 10 more bites a day, but I do think occasionally those fish will eat it a little bit better.
All right. Cracks me up. The one distinct thing, there's numerous ones, but the one distinct thing about a Norman crankbait is what, Matt?
It's been around forever.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about the characteristics of the bait, the way it looks. What's the one distinct thing?
It's rounded?
No, it's the eyes. It's got those crazy eyes on it.
Oh,
Have you
up
not
at
noticed
the up
it?
at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy eyes. And that bait had the crazy eyes. That was one of the things that I noticed.
It did, for sure.
That's why they ate it in Aldridge. They
It's
hadn't
the
seen those crazy eyes.
I
They'd
know.
seen them all, but they hadn't seen those eyes. Along that line, and guys have talked a little bit about this, but we saw how Hank Cherry won it there on Browns Creek, and I mean, it was no secret where you did a lot of the damage. I mean, even the way Todd Otten and where Todd Otten was fishing. Did it surprise you how, I don't know another word to say this, obvious the places were that turned out to be the major players in the Classic? And do you feel like a lot of the field really overthunk? I think that's the word I'm looking for. Overthunk how to go about this when, number 1 and number 3 went to just, went to the most obvious spots and absolutely mauled them?
I think, yes, I think they did, but it wasn't that they didn't practice those areas. I think the whole key was it really wasn't on fire. I mean, if you look at the weights and the way everybody caught them, perceiving what you see on TV, it looks like it was just absolutely on fire. Mm-hmm. But it really wasn't that way. Those areas where I was fishing, it was really actually pretty, I would call it not tough, but it was slow. Like you had to really grind those areas and had to, I was fishing a lot of the same stretches multiple times throughout the day and kind of jumping around in those areas to get the bites I was getting. For me, Guntersville is probably one of those lakes where there's more fish and tournament quality fish in the obvious areas than anywhere else on that lake. And I've found myself, if you go back and look at my tournaments on Guntersville, I haven't been that successful there. And it's because I've kind of said, well, I'm not going to fish those areas because they're the most obvious. You have the most local pressure on those areas. And I really kind of put that out of my mind and said, you know what? There's good ones in here and they're biting a little bit. I'm going to stick it out. I think I can get 5 or 6 bites a day. And ended up, I was amazed. The first day was fairly slow with the cold front that we had. But day 2, I caught 20-something keepers.
Wow.
And I didn't have a live camera on day 2 because I was in 11th place after day 1, missed it by 1 spot. But day 2 was actually a really unbelievable day of catching like 2.5 to 3 pounders. I mean, I had 19 pounds, but I caught a pile of 3-pound fish that day. And it really kind of set the tone for the final day because I didn't expect it to get better, but it actually did. And then that final day, making a few key adjustments, staying in that marina a little bit longer that morning, and actually had been starting on a spot they were schooling in the back of the creek. But I actually opted to start where I'd caught my biggest fish from day 1 in front of the marina there, and just kind of stayed in there a little bit longer, kind of trying to figure that out a little better, and ended up catching my 2 best fish pretty early that last day. And, hindsight's always 20/20. I'm not sure if I could have came back and won, but I might should have stayed in that marina all day and just took a chance on getting 3 more of those 4 3/4 to 5.5 pound bites, and maybe even caught a 7 or 8 pounder and could have made a stronger run at winning that thing. But I made the decisions I made all week, and I felt really good about it. And I still, I'm not a guy that dwells on the past. I think if you ask me a question of how does your success, take you into the future, I don't think about those things. I'm not even thinking about our next tournament. I don't know when it is. I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is one day at a time. And I've said that the whole Classic from the very beginning of the week. I've got those interviews about how are you going to handle the pressure of your first Classic and not let that get in your head and everything that goes along with the Classic week. And my answer all week long was take it each thing at a time, each day at a time, not just fishing, but enjoy each moment of that week and don't let those opportunities pass by. Take it for what they are, enjoy it, soak it all in. And then when the tournament gets here, do the exact same thing. And, now with what's going on in the whole world, it's our job to focus on one day at a time and take care of the people around you. It's bigger than ourselves. I'm kind of tying this into the whole fishing thing. It's time for us as human beings to take care of other people and to focus on one day at a time. And right now, fishing is not what's important. Yes, I'll get out there and tinker on my tackle and, kind of pass the time getting gear ready and thinking about what's coming and down the road. But we don't know how long this thing's going to last. And, I want to make sure that I enjoy every minute with my family. And that's all I'm thinking about. And I think if you put life into perspective each day at a time, when that next tournament gets here, I'm going to be just as eager as I am every year during off season, and I'll be ready to go. People are like, do you fish all winter? How do you stay sharp? For me, I get away from it, man. I back up. I go hunting. I spend time with the family, take the family fishing, take the family hunting, do other things. For me, success is driven one day at a time. And being able to fish that classic and have a successful tournament like I did and not let things get to my head and kind of, man, I'm just glad to be here because I was really so glad and thankful for the opportunity to make my very first classic. And, I tell you another thing too, right now, there's a lot of back and forth in the fishing world about should we be fishing, shouldn't we be fishing, why are we doing what we're doing? And, I want to make sure that people understand that Bassmaster as an organization made the right calls for us not to be fishing. Yes, you can get out on the lake and quarantine yourself from people. And yes, you can get out there and not, you don't have to be close to people to fish. But in our tournaments, there's a lot more, and this goes back to being a good human and just living one day at a time and taking care of other people. We want to make sure as a whole organization that we're not putting anybody in jeopardy. We need to take this time off, let this thing run its course, do what we're asked to do, stay close to home, don't come in contact with too many people. And I think when this all shakes out, we're all going to be eager to get back at it. And this whole industry, this whole country is going to be it's going to be fine. We're all going to be taken care of. It's going to be good. I tell you right now, for me, YouTube, doing the videos, I think that's a really important thing. And I just want to say, I appreciate my fans and my sponsors and the support that I have. And, follow me on my YouTube channel. Follow me on my social media pages, Stetson Blaylock Fishing. It's super simple. I'll be putting out a lot of good content. It's pretty cool that I started. I've got a cameraman with me all year this year, and it's kind of unique how, this is my first year to do that. And we've really only had 2 tournaments. And like you said, 5 days of fishing. It's just crazy. So for me to do all this and invest in this and then not get to fish, you would think I'd be mad and upset about it. But again, I live life one day at a time, and we're going to take it just like that. And I can't wait to get back fishing. But for me, I'm enjoying this downtime.
Very nice. Very well said. All right, let's do this. I want to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and take some questions for you to answer from the instant feedback. How does that sound, Stetson?
Sounds good.
All right, so folks, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and get to your questions on the instant feedback. Everybody stay tuned.
Let's face it, fishing electronics are no longer an afterthought. They've become a necessity. And at the Bass Tank, our experts match you with the right electronics, provide professional installation, and educate you to help maximize your catching results while providing support along the way. Because let's be honest, it's about catching, not just fishing. And when you're ready for better results, join the Bass Tank team. Visit us today on Facebook or go to thebasstank.com.
Blue Water by TH Marine, offering LED lighting solutions for your boat, trailer, truck, ATV, and so much more. Engineered and built to be rugged with waterproof and submersible options. Designed for easy installation, Blue Water is available in a variety of colors and styles. All backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Blue Water by TH Marine.
The name SPRO says it all. SPRO stands for Sports Professionals. When you look at the pro staff that SPRO has brought on board over the past 15 years, it's been pretty incredible. I mean, one got it just then. From the development of the rock crawler to the McStick, from the Fat Papa to the Little John series, when you tie a SPRO bait on, you know it's been designed by a professional to get the job done. While I travel the country on the Bassmaster Elite Series, I simply can't let the weather be the reason I don't win $100,000. That's why I use AFCO clothing to keep me warm, dry, and protected from whatever Mother Nature wants to throw at me. My season depends on it. My career depends on it. AFCO, any fish, any water.
All of us on the Pro Tournament Trail use Gamakatsu hooks.
Why?
Because they are absolutely the best.
It's not about how many bites you get.
It's how many you put in the boat.
Gamakatsu makes hooks for every fishing style.
We didn't come this far to lose fish.
Did you?
For more information, visit gamakatsu.com.
The Big Bite Baits Kamikaze Swim-On is a very unique bait, and it's got a full body but with ribs to give it a bigger profile but not more plastic. It's got a jointed tail that gives it a lot of action, as well as this up and down crawl type trail with holes and ribs in it, so it creates a bubble trail almost. This bait is supposed to be fished upside down or vertical like this on a grate for a chatterbait. I prefer it on a swim jig as well, but you can also cut it down and put it on the back of a finesse jig. You know, flip it around for some spotted bass or flipping docks. Anytime you want a small, compact, you know, little trailer for it, this is great for it. So check out the full lineup of swim-ons at bigbitebaits.com.
All right, we are back with our special guest today, Stetson Blaylock, and we're going to take some questions from the instant feedback now. Wow, I got a lot here, Matthew. Let's see here. The first one, Steve in Iowa wants to know, please ask Stetson about the topwater bait that he used during the live segment from Winyah Bay.
Okay, that was so Winyah and Hartwell back-to-back tournaments. I caught some key fish, and those fish were all caught on the Pop RP70, and those were old P70s that I've had for years. That bait is a very unique bait, and it has a very unique situation. You know, there's a couple different styles of poppers, in my opinion. You know, if you look at the Booyah Boss Pop, it's more of an open water, you know, casting it over shallow points and flats and pockets and kind of moving fast. But the P70s, it's a heavier bait. It sits lower in the water. And to me, that's a prime pre-spawn, spawn, and post-spawn, early post-spawn topwater bait when those fish are still up there right on the bank, sitting in those shade pockets. You saw how those fish were, most of those bites were super duper shallow. That's just a prime bait for those situations. And I think we may be coming out with a new version of that bait that's just like the old one with new colors. And I don't want to say too much about that, but who knows?
All right, very cool.
Hypothetically, if you wanted to get an old one, an original one, how many dollar bills is that going to run you these days?
Well, there's remakes of it actually that are $12. I mean, you can buy them all day long for $12.
The OG, the original one from back in the day. What, a 30, 40 bucks?
You better have a full $100 bill if you want to buy one.
Wow. Yeah, well, it is what it is. All right. Dave wants to know, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And are you working on any new endeavors that you're involved with?
5 years. I personally am one of these guys that, I'm 32 and I've been doing it a while. I really don't want to be doing this till I'm 70. I really love what I do, but I would like to see myself in the next 5 years with some titles. I mean, I think if you go back and look at my career, you'll see runner up in about everything that I've fished and competed in, and a third place in the Classic. I think kind of finishing those deals would be great for me in the next 5 years. Get an Angler of the Year, get a Classic win, kind of start that kind of setting myself up to be able to walk away on a high note. I'm not saying 5 years and I'd be done. I'm just saying, accomplish those things while I'm in my prime, and I think the next 5 years is going to be that time. As far as endeavors, I'm always looking for new opportunities. With this new YouTube series and a full-time cameraman that travels with me, we're going to be doing a lot of cool things. Hunting trips, I really do love to hunt, duck hunting, deer hunting, those kind of things. That's all down the line. But anybody that has any ideas, get on my social media, shoot me a message if there's something you'd like to see from me and as a fan, and just being able to see me do stuff and maybe get outside my comfort zone and try something I've never done before. I'd be all for it. So give me some ideas.
All right. Frank in Michigan says, I remember watching you during the Ultimate Match Fishing. Do you like that format?
I do. It's a really cool, unique format, being able to fish against another pro in the same boat and, 2 quarters in the front, 2 quarters in the back. And I think it just sets up to my style, because I like to be able to stay, I call it, I'm really even keel when it comes to fishing. I don't get real high in the high and low in the lows. And I think that is a perfect example of that, being able to compete in that format and know what the guy's catching in front or behind you. And I think all those years of fishing as a co-angler really helped me out in that format. And it's just something I've been able to do and enjoy and be successful at.
All right, Jay in Ontario wants to know, what's your preferred crankbait setup?
For me, I throw a 6-6-1 reel almost all the time when I'm cranking. If I'm throwing a square bill moving really fast, I'll go to a 7-3. I'll use a 7-foot to a 7-4. I like a little stiffer rod for cranking than most people, but still a good moderate action. And the line size depends on how deep I'm fishing the bait. Really, that's really all or how clear the water is. I'll start at 8 or 10, and I'll go up to 20, depending on if there's grass or how if I need to keep the bait above the grass, or if there's no grass and I'm trying to get as many bites as possible, I'll go down. But line size varies. You just got to get out there and play with it.
All right, Brian in Minnesota wants to know, how do you know if you have an original P70?
That's a tricky one, because even myself, I've struggled with that on a few. I've got a whole box full, and some of them I look at and I can't remember if they're old ones or not. From what I can remember, I think the hook hangers are brass on some of the old ones. But for me, I think you need to just look, and when you find one, it's going to have that old look to it. If it has that old look to it, and those old ones have a knocker in them, but a lot of times the knocker will be stuck in those real old ones. And my favorite one, the one that I catch all those fish on the shows last year, that particular bait, the knocker is actually stuck. It doesn't knock anymore. It has zero noise at all, except the hooks banging back and forth. But you can tell the difference if you'll just get online and look. You can see the remakes versus an old one. You can get on there and look. And who knows, maybe I'll do a video on that on the channel and show everybody the differences between one of them that I know for a fact is an old one, and then several that I have are remakes. But let me say this. The remake of that bait, I've caught a lot of fish on. Every one of them is unique in its own way. And they, to me, it's about finding that bait, that particular one that works. It's not necessarily, is it an old one or a remake, but does it work? Can you roll cast it under the cover? And does it have the right side-to-side action? and does it get bit? That's the biggest thing. I mean, everybody wants a bait that gets bit, so that's the number one thing about that.
All right, a number of people want to know what was special about the marina that you were fishing at the Classic.
I think that particular marina, it's right. They built it right in the I'm going to say the critical part of that ditch, and that's the biggest creek ditch in that whole bay and in that whole area. And I think those fish just use it. I don't think it has anything to do with the marina, but I live on a couple lakes here locally at home that just because those marinas are there, I think it helps those ditches, and I think that's just exactly what happens at that particular one.
Do you think you're the first person to ever catch a bass out of that marina?
Absolutely not. Matter of fact, I saw a lot of fish get caught there, and in practice, you'd be in those areas fishing, and you'd see other competitors catch them there, and that's what I'm saying. Other guys fished in that area, but they didn't get enough bites, I guess, to think that it was going to be a key player, in having a successful tournament there, because it wasn't on fire. And I think that's the biggest deal for me was just being able to understand that I needed to get 5 or 6 bites a day.
It's funny. When I was watching the weigh-in, I turned to the guy next to me and I said, "There's about 3,000 people in this arena right now that are turning to their buddy going, oh, I catch him out of that marina every spring, right there, right where he caught him."
Absolutely, no doubt.
Were they fresh? I mean, your fish were beat up, but it looked like they were fresh fish that had moved back there. They didn't look like they had holes in them.
No, I think we were there not at a perfect storm, because you could see if you look down the scale of the tournament standings, everybody didn't just blast them, but I think those areas, like that particular area, those fish were just starting to move in there, and maybe they weren't. Maybe they're resident fish, but again, the major ditch right there under that marina, it was just a perfect spot for those fish to move in, hang out right before they move back in there to spawn.
All right, Colton in Texas wants to know, from a soft plastic standpoint, what's your go-to color?
Green pumpkin all day, every day. I don't care. It's funny, we were fishing. This is a good example of why I choose green pumpkin. We fished at Hartwell and Clear Lake, spotted bass, and then I made the final day there, finished runner-up to Brandon Cobb. I drove all night to get to Winyah Bay, didn't even retie my rods, picked up the same wacky rig Yum Dinger that I've been throwing at Hartwell, and started catching them on it at Winyah Bay, which is a largemouth tidal water. It's got that tannic color to it. So to me, color does not matter. It's all about confidence and finding the baits. Everybody you ask, it doesn't matter what you're fishing. They all have their own style, their own colors that they pick. It's just about finding what you're confident in and doing it.
All right, Frank in Michigan wants to know, what's your favorite time of the year to fish?
I love to fish the wintertime just because it's cold. There's not a lot of people on the water. You can catch your largest bass ever in those wintertime months. But for me, if I have to pick one week of the year, it's going to be the first or second week of April.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Huh. I love that. I love that pre-spawn funk right as they come in to spawn, when everybody's, the birds are chirping, the flowers are starting to bloom, the trees are blooming. That, to me, that's when things come to life, and I just love being out there that time of year.
We had a discussion earlier about a possibility of a fall Bassmaster Classic. What would be your thoughts on that?
Again, I'll be honest with you. I get my emails just like every other bass angler does that fishes any kind of tournaments or Facebook messages, and I don't care if I'm fishing a local tournament or the Bassmaster Classic. I don't really put a whole lot of thought into it. About a month before that tournament gets here, I'll start looking into it and figuring out what I'm going to need and what's the water temps, what they're going to be around and what stage those fish are going to be in, and kind of put my game plan together. But I don't really try to think about, too far out. Some of our tournaments this year could be in the fall, just because we're with this pandemic we're in. These tournaments are getting, postponed. we could be fishing into the fall, which is something we don't get to do very often. But, I think it's going to be, I think if the Classic were in the fall, I think it would give people a different perspective on some of their favorite lakes. And it seems like your anglers that, that are successful are still successful no matter when those tournaments are. So I don't think it would change a whole lot, except, it's just a different time frame. You'd see some different weights, some different fishing styles, which would be pretty cool. You might get to learn a few new tricks that you haven't seen in a long time.
I agree. All right, Bill in Illinois wants to know, did you have or do you have a fishing idol or somebody that you looked up to when you were young?
I do, and I did, and I still do, and he's still one of my favorite anglers ever, and that's Larry Nixon, a native Arkansan here, lives here in Bee Branch, Arkansas, and for me, I looked up to him even before this, but I got to fish with Larry 2 times as a co-angler, and just a straight-up gentleman, not a better person to be around, and as a kid, that he didn't know me from Adam. And, as a co-angler, those pros never know if you're gonna be around for a minute or for your lifetime. And he treated me just like one of the guys that was gonna be there forever. And, Larry to this day is just as good a guy as there is. And, I know he's not fishing as many tournaments now because he's had some shoulder issues and some arm issues, but hopefully he'll be back out there competing, and we'll get to see some more of him.
So did you fish with him as a co-angler on the
I
FLW?
did 2 times.
Really? Was he using a pistol grip?
No, he was already past that.
This was like
I know,
2005,
man.
2006.
I had to say it, okay? I had to say it because of the conversation that we had with him when he was on. Anyway.
You talk about Arkansas, and you mentioned him, and you got Mark Davis and Cochran and Stephen Browning and you, but the more I moved up to Tulsa, which is pretty close to Arkansas, I fish Arkansas a little bit, but man, Arkansas has some scrappy anglers, and the more you kind of look around Arkansas, I think it's really underrated as a diverse state to really learn a bunch of tactics that are applicable across the country.
I think it's only underrated because it's not thought about a lot. But if you really take a minute and think about it, you go back to all the Forest Wood Cups that's been in Arkansas. You go back to all the Elite Series that's fished Table Rock, Bull Shoals, FLW went to Beaver Lake all those years. You're talking about the Arkansas River with the Elite 50s back in the day. There's so many names that haven't been mentioned. I mean, Scott Rook. You look at FLW Pro Circuit right now, Spencer, Evan Barnes, Kerry Milner, another name that's been dominant for years and years and had another really good tournament. Who else is there? Scott Suggs, Greg Bohannon, Harvey Horn up there. There's so many
Clark
guys.
Clark Ream came out of Arkansas.
Clark Ream.
Stephen Browning.
Yeah, I said him.
Stephen Browning.
Yeah.
George Cochran, y'all mentioned him. And then, another one that grew up in Arkansas, Greg Hackney. And you look at those names and what those guys, Ron Sheffield,
Mark
another
Rose.
great. Yeah, Mark Rose, another one. I mean, there's the list is long enough that it's hard to remember them all and get them all. But those anglers all have their unique fishing styles and strengths. And, we have lakes like Ouachita and Beaver Lake that are deep, timber, clear water. And then you have the Arkansas River that runs right through the center of the state that gives you that muddy water current. So there's so many opportunities to learn and be diverse, just like what you said. And I think that is one of the biggest things for Arkansans and for anglers around here is if you want to, and I tell you another thing too is the state of Arkansas can be pretty tough fishing throughout the year. And I think it just makes you a better angler when you go to a lake like Guntersville that's full of big bass. You can kind of put together something to where you're only getting 6 or 7 bites and turn out and be really successful.
And all 3 species too. I mean, you got spotted bass lakes. You've got some really good smallmouth fisheries too that you can, with beaver
Greer's
and stuff
Ferry.
like that. Greer's
Yeah.
Ferry, some crazy. I mean, it really is like a really underrated state as far as like honing your skills to do whatever you want.
No, that's a great point. All right, Matt in Minnesota wants to know, what's your favorite body of water outside of your home state?
I would say Kentucky Lake for a long time, but I've kind of learned that the electronics that we have nowadays and the way Kentucky Lake has evolved over the last few years, the ledge fishing there is a lot harder than it used to be. That was my favorite just because I really enjoyed catching those fish offshore. I would say now my absolute favorite lake and favorite style of fishing is Lake St. Clair up there in Michigan. And I think it's my favorite now because you can absolutely go out there and know nothing about that lake and catch 20 plus pounds of smallmouth every day on that thing. And it just blows my mind how many people, I have buddies here at home that, of course, it's been on our schedule for the last 2 years, but I know they go up there and they catch 20-pound bags, and they've never been there. They just go up there because they've heard it's good and catch 20-pound bags of smallmouth. It's just absolutely crazy how good that place is year in and year out. And I guess it's because it freezes over and those fish don't get fished near as hard as our lakes down here do.
Nice. All right, man. Last question. I'm curious, during this time period, you mentioned you're going to spend a lot of time with your family, maybe tinker around with your stuff. But if you do go on the water, is there anything in your game, or what element of your game do you really need to work on?
Oh, man. Let me think about that. For me, I'm not real sure. To me, it's honestly, I'll be honest with you. To me, and my family can vouch for this, it's just fun fishing. Just going fishing and not thinking about a tournament, not going to the lake with that practice mindset. For me, every single day that I go to the lake and then I go fishing, I'm working on something. And for me, I think you can never know enough about your electronics. And, I'm running the Garmin stuff, and the Garmin Live Scope has been a huge player the last couple of years. But I think you can always learn more and more and more about those technologies and just get more comfortable with different things. Just for instance, like I struggle in those post-spawn tournaments when those fish are starting to move back offshore, not necessarily ledge fishing, but those post-spawn tournaments. And I think that's something that, we can work on. But for me, it's just being able to go out there and enjoy it and not necessarily feeling like I have to practice or be in that tournament mode all the time when I'm on the water.
Very cool. Hey, do you ever watch Wicked Tuna, that show on National Geographic?
No, I have a few times, but it's not something I watch regularly.
The only reason I asked him that is it seems like to me that you would like doing that, going out and catching a 500 or 600 pound tuna.
Believe it or not, I haven't done much fishing offshore, catching really, really big fish.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I'm not tournament fishing, I don't fish a whole lot.
Really?
And I think that's just because there's other things that I like to do. And I like to tinker with old vehicles. I still have my very first truck that my dad bought me when I was 14 years old. I like to do stuff with the kids. We go on trips a lot, just family trips, and do things. There's just other aspects of life that I enjoy, and tournament bass fishing is just what I get to do as a career, and I really love it and I enjoy it. But going on vacations, going to Florida, going to the beach, going camping, those things are all things that I really do enjoy, and it's just stuff for me. You have anglers like Brian Thrift that fish every day that they can, even in the off season. Then you have guys like Andy Morgan that when the season's over, they park their boat. And I'm kind of in between that. I still like to fish. I like to fish winter tournaments at home, but I really, really do enjoy the downtime and getting to do other things. And I think it just keeps me hungry when I do get in the front of that boat.
All right, very cool, man. You really got things dialed in, and can't thank you enough for taking time out to be on the show. And once again, let everybody know, I had a couple of comments. They wanted to know where the Q&A was, so throw everything you got out there where people can check out stuff that you have going on.
Yeah, well, it's super easy. It's Stetson Blaylock Fishing. That's Facebook, Instagram, and my YouTube channel. And the YouTube is new for me. I've put a few things on there the past few years, but we're really stepping that up this year. We're going to keep adding fresh content to it. I'm not a YouTube guy. My career is fishing tournaments, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to try to teach people through that and through those opportunities, but I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more YouTube stuff. But Facebook and Instagram, I try to stay really on top of that. And if you have questions, get on there and shoot me a message, get on a post and comment on it. I do my very best to get on there, and I will definitely give you an honest answer. And hey, I appreciate you guys having me and giving me the opportunity to promote myself. And I appreciate the kind words, and I hope that the success is really just getting started.
Very nice. All right, man. Take care of your family. Be safe, and we will talk to you soon, Stetson.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. There you have it, Stetson Blaylock. And greatly appreciate him taking time out. Hey, the only reason I asked him the Wicked Tuna thing, I was binge watching that last night.
Really? Are they
Would
still
you
doing
like to
new
do that?
episodes?
I don't know. It was all reruns.
I'll tell you what. Here's what I found. I like catching the big fish. One time though.
Just
so
one time?
like you go up to Alaska, and it's like the whole experience and thing. But I gotta be honest, once you catch one halibut, the next time you're like, it's a lot of work to reel that halibut up.
I've heard,
and there's not. I mean, it's not like you're running around the boat with it. I mean, you're just like you're kind of present, hanging on, get your butt kicked, and it's the same thing every time I've got to these giant. The exception is the salmon, but they kind of fight like a bass.
Yeah.
But any of these giant fish, like going offshore, I've been offshore a couple times. Like it's fun, but it's kind of the same thing over and over. It's not like I would rather have a 5-pound bass on 6-pound test drop shot. Like that fight to me is much more like interactive and more like plays out like a story.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's some skill in landing that, and you run around the boat and you have like 6 crap moments. You're like lifting up the trolling motor, it's getting caught and stuff. Like those giant fish. Now I know that I mean it's not a foregone conclusion they're going to catch it, but there's a lot of hanging on.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've heard that when you catch those big halibut, it's like reeling up a garage door.
Yeah, that's what I said. They're called barn doors. I mean, it really is. Like I said, I've told this story before. I went up there, and with the current and the 5-pound weight we were using, I called for the fighting belt, and the only thing that had happened was my chunk of cod had gotten wrapped around the weight, and it was spinning down there, and I was fighting it 200 feet deep, and I called for the belt and didn't even have a fish on. I still can't live that one down, Mark.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
My buddy's 8-year-old nephew looked at me, laughed, and said, "You need to go sit in the cabin," after it came up. I mean, I was getting beaked by an 8-year-old because it just felt the same, like I had a fish on.
Yeah.
It's still fun, yeah. It's experience. The big, giant stuff like that is an experience trip for me more so than the thrill of the fight.
Those bluefin are cool-looking fish.
Have you ever done any of that big, giant fish fishing?
No. I went marlin fishing a couple of times, but never caught anything.
Like the most helpless feeling I felt big fish fishing was the one time Crete took me out to the oil rig, and you drop it down, you hook one every single time. You're like hook to land ratio is like 2%. Like you hook one and he just starts laughing. Like it's just over and over and over again.
Huh. All right. Well, good stuff, man. He, like I said, Stetson's got it dialed in. He really does.
Yep.
All right. Tomorrow, either a best of or a canned interview that we may get done this afternoon. Thursday, Rick Pierce. Friday, David Fritz. And then working on the schedule for the next couple of weeks. All right. Did you go crappie fishing?
No.
Are you going to try and go crappie fishing?
Yeah, I'll try to go today.
I was going to ask you, when the wind blows a lot, does that make it more difficult?
In my experience, the past year,
okay,
it gets those fish more active and up in the water column, as long as it's not kind of the washing machine effect where it's actually putting more particles up. As long as you kind of have a breeze, it seems to get those fish a little bit more active. And then if you can get to where you're going into it, it actually helps be able to kind of steady that boat and stay 12 to 15 feet behind that fish that you're targeting. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a pain in the ass. It's you either want like dead calm or like a steady breeze in one direction. Like when it's howling, but that's with anything in fishing, unless you're, going down the riprap chunking a spinnerbait or something.
Yeah.
But you can make it happen. You need to use a little heavier jig, get a little closer to the fish, a little bit more aggressive.
Very
it's
cool.
harder to stay on them. You have to remember, I'm not fishing, I'm hunting.
Oh, good point. Good point. No, I never thought about that. That's the thrill. That's the story.
Yes.
All right. Well,
I've been out with John Sukup of the Bass Tank and his Alubita, where literally I'm trying to stand on the front deck so that the trolling motor doesn't come out of the water. There's waves crashing over. He's 5 feet from the dam, and he's trying to chase this thing with his electronics. And I'm like, you sure this is really efficient? Then all of a sudden, whack, 2 3/4 pound crappie.
All right, folks, if you're listening to us on iTunes, please do us a favor. Leave us a review, rate us, give us a rating, and write a review. It helps us out a ton. And then over on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. And you got more videos coming, right, Matthew?
Yeah, like I said last week, I posted the Podunkers Winter League Fishing Championship, which is me power pulled down in front of a hot water discharge, catching them for 8 hours. So, but it's cool. It's got some cool elements to it. I caught a turtle on an Alabama rig.
There you have it.
But yeah, I got some more stuff coming down the pipeline, and I'm probably going to throw a crappie one out from this next couple days. So,
all right, that's it, folks. Check back with us tomorrow, live in studio. Matt and I will be here on Thursday with Rick Pierce. Fritz on Friday. Everybody, that's it. We're out of here.